Anybody else is? People are grabbing their seats, no pun intended. Feels like forever since we've had a class, but it's only been a short while. Okay, I'm going to turn the air down. Put your coat on. Excuse me. Well, thanks for being here. I only see one new face here today, Steve Dorsey, but he's been with us years ago. Hiatus and is back, so I think everybody else. So welcome, Steve.
Welcome back.
Anyway, everybody else is. We should know, right? Jennifer Kirk hasn't been in a meeting for a while. We'll just say that. Maggie's back. Trisha's here. We all kinds of people. This is great. Good. Chelsea, you want to take a minute and just say hello?
Yeah.
Come on up and say hello.
Everybody. Chelsea Riley with Freedom Home Warranty. It's getting to that time of year where people are wanting their HVAC tune-ups and lots of. We won't be seeing a lot of AC issues anymore, mostly just heating issues. So remember, our service call fees are $65. If you have buyers or sellers that want to get their HVAC system tuned up for the cold season, now's a great time to do it.
Good. Thank you, Chelsea. Did you have anything? No? Okay. Always want to give you the chance. Okay. It's a full day at the building today. Right after this, at 11:30 today, we have a class. There's 60 people signed up to attend for the class that's at, what's it called? Let's see here. I don't remember. How to find more sellers in any market. Put on by Cross Country. Is Cross Country here? They're busy getting ready, probably. Anyone else here for the first time? Have we met before? You just say hi. What's your name?
Cheryl Santiago from Dwell.
Oh, okay, great. Welcome. She's a guest, isn't it? Right?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. There's Cross Country. Class today, full class today at about 55, 60 people at 11:30.
Yeah, Travis Smith, our newest guy in this location, is going to teach the class, and it should be a good one.
Good, thanks. And then theater's going to be used for a class starting about 11:15 for a class for some people that will be invited to. So you should be aware of that meeting in class. Okay, so those are right.
Conversations in the hall now.
Well, no, just the theater won't be available to go pass through. So you have to just kind of go this way, just so you're aware. Okay, just wanted to show just really, anyone else have anything to say before we get off into the meeting? Anyone have overlooked who is this the first meeting? I think I recognize everybody from somewhere. All right. Okay. So I just want to point out a couple things just really quick before we get going in base camp. Just a reminder, at base camp, whenever there's a class or some posting, it's going to send you out a notification. If you don't want it via email, just go to your settings under your picture and go to change your notification settings. You turn the emails off and on. But please don't unsubscribe from base camp. Please stay engaged because that's where everything is. Okay? And then just show you here on the HQ under the schedule, there are several classes coming up. The one today for CE hour. There's also a really important one on the 11th, on the 11th, which is tomorrow. Right? Yeah, September 11th. Oh man, we're coming back to September 11th. That's been almost 20 years. You believe that? Everybody remember where you were? Yeah. Tenant relocation would cause evictions. And then also there's a manufactured home in-park class. We do have a license to do in-park transactions as a company, but you need to attend some training before you do it. They're not big deals. I mean, they're typically under 100 grand, but they can lead to more deals. But if you want to do a manufactured home in-park and haven't attended one of the classes, be sure to attend that. And then on Monday, this is what I really want to point out, disclosure lawsuits, best practices in avoiding liability at the Oregon State Bar Building. It's not here. And presented by Kevin Ike. He's the guy that taught our tenant class a while ago. And he's going to be teaching about this as well. So if you haven't registered, you really should. This is a good one to help dodge the bullets, right? Help avoid the mines in the line field, whatever analogy you want to use. The snowballs flying, but if you haven't registered, be sure to do so. You just click on here and just hit register here, and it takes you right to the web page to register. Okay?
So
Should-
there's 86 registered.
Yeah, there's 86 registered right now. There's room for 144, and that's in the 24 hours. So it'll fill pretty quick. If you haven't registered, please do so. These are the kind of classes that are really important, just because they can help you avoid certain situations. Well, they're all really important, okay? But it's really important to learn what pitfalls to avoid. Any questions, any of that? Nope, okay. Then I'm gonna pull up my other stuff. Okay, now that I got that up, I can go talk about what other thing before I get to it. Just want to make sure I knew where it was. So SkySlope and ZipForms. Recently, this summer, Lone Wolf is a competitor to this company called SkySlope, bought ZipForms. OREF, Oregon Real Estate Forms, years ago contracted with ZipForms to provide forms. And that's how you had access forms, was go to ZipForms, right? Any real estate form was there. You could also get them in forms and documents in the RMLS, a lot of them, but it was not very convenient. So everybody should know that, right? You have to have a ZipForms account to get the access to the forms. Yes?
Yes.
$89 per year, and you got it through ZipLogics or ZipForms Plus. Excuse me. Well, ZipForms Plus, ZipLogics used to have integrations with a bunch of third-party providers like SkySlope, Backagent. You know, the list goes on. They do a data feed out to them, allow them to do an API integration, which basically is a fancy way to say let the technologies talk, and you can access the forms through either place, and they communicate with each other. Well, Lone Wolf turned off all those external third-party communications to competing companies, because now they own ZipForms. Well, SkySlope's a competitor to Lone Wolf, so you don't get to have it anymore. Okay, you see that coming, right? So now, just so you know, if you haven't seen it yet, as of the 1st, there's no more integration with ZipForms and SkySlope. You all remember that? Hopefully. So the way you have to do that is download your PDFs and just load them back in. It's a first world problem. I gotta drag and drop, right? So yes, you gotta drag and drop and upload it, but that's it, right? It's that simple. I did call OREF this morning and talked to Brad. A guy named Brad happened to pick up the phone, and he says, and I said, I had a couple of questions about the forms and ZipForms. He goes, oh yeah. Okay. And I explained to you, is there any plans for anything, or is it always going to be ZipForms because they're taking it away, and now they've peeled it away from SkySlope and other places, and so it's become less efficient. He says, well, I happen to hire, this is my second week on the job, but I was hired for this purpose. I'm the technology product development person. That's my role. I went, oh, I'm glad you answered. And he says, yes, actually we're well aware, and ZipForms' reputation isn't the greatest, and it works all the time, but it's not really practical anymore. We want to make our forms available to anyone, anywhere. And so we are now in the process of trying to figure out who are the providers out there that want to offer forms, and we just have a licensing agreement with any third party, not just Zip, because right up till now it was really just ZipForms. They had the exclusive contract. And then if you wanted to have access to Oregon Forms, so they had to go talk to ZipForms. Well, now they're going to do away with that, and then you want to have them just talk to us and we'll connect you. That sounds better, right? Because now you don't have a third party in the middle that might get sold, that might turn everybody off all of a sudden, which is what happened. Excuse me. So he said, I'm just trying to right now, just investigating who are the providers like SkySlope. I said, well, so happens I know a few names, and I have a couple demos into the products this week, like SkySlope. He goes, oh, okay. So I threw some names at him, Backagent, Brokerman. I gave him like 6 names to try and to call. He goes, oh, wait, hold on, can you repeat that? And he's writing it down. Okay, cool. And then I just said, well, hey, if you take my name and number, if you need any help, just let me know. Right? And so he took my name and number, and 5 minutes later, he calls back and says, hey, can I join some of these demos you have going on with you? I said, sure. So I have multiple competing to SkySlope demos this week. And so he's joining me on those, so now we're helping Orif. That is kind of fun. We've done this before with other providers. We help SkySlope and Back Agent and several people like this. And so we're just kind of open to that because it also puts you in a place to know what's going on and maybe in a subtle way have an influence on it. I don't know if I did that. So that's underway, right? And so kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit. SkySlope has its own challenges over time, whether it's outages or whatever, or things not quite working correctly. So it's just put us in a place of just, okay, what else is out there? We close 220 transactions a month right now, 330 agents, and if this is a big ship to turn. So we will not ever turn it without plenty of, we haven't decided that's what's going to happen. We're just researching, just so you know. Because there's a lot of questions out there about zip forms and SkySlope and Broker Sumo and this and that. So we're just now at that place of, okay, let's make sure that the tools we have either work or find different solutions. Just so you know, that's what's going on. I even kicked around, can Venmo do our payment processing? Can we Venmo your checks? We can't. They don't do a business solution for Venmo or Zello. They don't do that. So we're actually just trying to, even the ACHs we're trying to sort out and get streamlined, but I'm coming to realize that banks, it's not necessarily just a Broker Sumo. I did a test from Chase yesterday, ACH, to my account, just for a little bit of money, and it might take 3 or 4 days still.
Yeah.
I bank at Chase. So it's not really, it's just a technology and the security measures people put in place to prevent fraud and things like that. So, but more to follow on all that. That's not the purpose of today's meeting. Any questions, any of that? About Zillow, or not Zillow, about zip forms or SkySlope integration, what to do there. Any questions? Just wait to hear that. Just know that you cannot integrate the two right now, right? SkySlope is trying to create their own thing, but they're also trying to communicate with Orif or load the forms on their own or get a data feed. So they're doing the same thing everybody else is doing right now since zip forms turn everybody off, basically. Okay? All right. So I did want to talk today about bumpable offers and contingent right to purchase. So we've talked about this in the past. The attendees shifted, changed, and come and go. So we want to hit on this again because I'm getting the question, and we're getting some misunderstanding and misinterpretation of what this means and how to do it. So if I say bumpable offer, what does that? Raise your hand. What does that mean in general, roughly? Kathy?
Contingent. They have to have something done before they can close. Sure.
Okay, so is every offer contingent?
No.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Every offer is contingent on many things.
But usually, it's like it's a house. They have a house to sell.
That's what it comes. It's a very specific thing. If it's bumpable, so to say an offer is contingent, okay, they're all contingent. That's just an incomplete sentence. It's contingent on the sale of my house. That equals bumpable, right? Understand the difference? Because it's contingent on financing, contingent on appraisal, it's contingent on expenses, contingent on, you know what I mean? So it's a long list of contingencies. But in that vein, what we're talking about in bumpable is mean I have to sell a house. So true or false? If I have a home to sell that's currently in escrow and I want to write an offer, is that going to be a bumpable transaction?
No.
True, raise your hand. It's bumpable. False? It is not bumpable.
It depends on what, doesn't it depend on whether the seller wants to trust that and go pending or be bumpable?
No, so it's pretty specific in the language. If I just have a house to sell, it's just now become part of my financing contingency. I have to close this to get the money. I can't own 2 homes. A lot of people can't. I have to close this house to complete the purchase of that one. It's kind of like my financing contingency because I have an offer on it already. It's already in escrow. I'm just waiting for things to close. That is not a bumpable offer. Okay? That is just a pending offer. Okay? Any questions or concerns, or there's no stupid questions. There really isn't. Well, usually. I'm just kidding. If you have a question and don't understand this, just raise your hand and say, wait, clarify that? Because I'm going to try to run faster than anyone's processing this. Because that's what, that is not contingent, that is not a bumpable transaction. That's not a contingent right to purchase. That is just, I've got a house to close, it's in escrow, we close on October 1st, I want to close on your house on October 3rd. That's just a pending transaction. Overstate the obvious, and conversely, I haven't put my house on the market yet, and I've got to sell it to buy yours. Is that bumpable?
Yeah.
That is absolutely bumpable. Or I'm active on the market with no offer on my house. Is that a bumpable transaction? So bumpable, not to confuse you, equates to contingent right to purchase addendums. Okay? So contingent right to purchase addendums basically means I have to sell a house in order to close on this one. That's what that means. With me so far? Pretty simple? Okay. So, when you write an offer,
Your screen came off.
why is that one off? One back there?
It's like the HDMI cable came out or something.
The chair is kind of wrapped around the cord too, so I don't know if that had something to do with that.
It did it when you moved the chair, I think. It's probably that.
Because I'm on the back. Okay, ready to turn around. Okay, I'm lost here because it was working a minute ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, when you move the table, it quit working.
Something happened. Oh, there it goes.
Is it up over there? Okay, great. So when you write an offer, you have financing contingencies. On the page 2 here, very important section, balance of purchase price, select A or B. Right? But right here, this is an important thing to describe. This literally says buyer represents that buyer has liquid and available funds for the earnest money deposit and down payment, and if an all cash transaction, the full purchase price sufficient to, I have all the stuff that's enough to close a transaction described herein. With me so far?
Yeah.
And is not relying on any contingent source of funds. So contingent source of funds would be the close of a home, right? But then they add this word, for example, loan from loans, gifts, sale, or closing of other property, except as follows. So I'm not depending on any of that to close a home, except. So here's where you would say, close of my home, currently in escrow, address is. Or whatever, something like that. That's where you would put the subject to close of my house that's currently in escrow. Or you would say subject to close of my house, I don't have an offer on yet. Or I don't even have listed yet. See attached contingency addendums. That's where you'd say it, not additional provisions. This is the right place to say that.
How much detail do you have to put? Can't you just put contingent upon proceeds from the sale of?
A buyer's primary residence. Yeah. If I'm a listing agent, I'm going to want to know a little more about that. So I proactively will say, located at the here's the escrow company. Give them a call. I mean, I will just let them, because they're going to. If you're a good listing agent, you're going to ask for that anyway. But you don't have to say that. Subject to close of primary residence. That's all you really have to say. But as an escrow, you might want to at least add that, right? Kind of tell the status of it. But you don't have to get more detail than that. If I'm on the listing side, though, I'm going to start saying, well, where is this home? Well, it's in Florida. Okay. Can I see a copy of the HUD or anything that shows me where you are on this? Then attach to the file. So not much. You don't have to say much here. You just need to make it a contingency. But if it's in escrow, the buyer's primary residence is not a bumpable buyer. It's not a contingent right to purchase. If here you say it's not on the market yet, or I don't have an offer yet, that does become bumpable, and then these other addendums do apply. Okay, that's where you say it. Just a reminder too, failure of financing contingency. The buyer receives actual notification from lender that any financing contingencies identified above, this is above, right, have failed, otherwise cannot occur. You need to notify them right away. So if my home in escrow has a sale fail, does that mean I gotta let them know right away? You better let them know right away. Okay, this is all about protecting your client's deposit now too, right? Because a seller has a right to know. Last thing you want to do is be on the hook for some sort of liability because of neglected disclosing something, right? Did I see a hand go up? No, okay. And in such case, the party shall have 2 days, if not filled in, to try and come up with another agreement or arrangement. And if you can't, this transaction is automatically terminated. Okay? Make sense? Questions, scenarios, things you come across? Nope? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift right now to the contingent right to purchase addendum. Holy moly. DEFCON 1. Anybody ever see the movie The Russians Are Coming? You ever see that back in 1968? No, you never seen that? Oh man. It's funny as a movie. It's got all the greats. It's got all the greats are in there. It's hysterical. And you see it's a mad, mad, mad world.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's similar to that. Anyway, so I don't know why that. I digress. So, in the financing contingencies, I say I have to sell a house. It's not on the market or it's not pending yet. You need to use this contingent right to purchase form. Okay? And it's pretty self-explanatory. Have anyone ever read it? I'll bet half of you haven't, at least. But you know how many realtors just go through and fill in blanks? Oh, there's a blank here. Oh, there's a blank here. And you kind of skim through it, but you really should at some point at least read through the whole documents, just so you're familiar. But so here, this transaction is contingent upon the sale and closing of buyer's primary real property located at, and you put the address, okay? Buyer's property is currently listed for sale with a licensed real estate agent where said property is located, or you check the other box, buyer's property will be listed for sale with a licensed real estate agent where said property is located within blank number of days, 3 if not filled in, after a seller has signed acceptance sales agreement. So some buyers want to wait until they have a home to go to before they list a house. They're hedging their bets. Some sellers don't want to accept an offer until they have a place to go, right? It's all part of the balancing act in real estate, right? But in this situation, you have to pick one of those boxes. I'm currently on the market, or I'm going to be on the market. Check the second box. I need 10 days. How strong is this offer now? Terrible offer. Frankly, if I get that far in one of these, and it says 3 to 10 days or more, I will advise my client, let's just reject it and say, come back and rewrite it when you're actually on the market. If you're that far out, you're clearly not ready. Because guess what they're asking you to do if they check this box right here and put in, say, 5 days. Effectively, what the buyer is asking the seller to do is say, look, take your home off the market so it's convenient for me while I try and get my affairs in order so no one else can take this offer. I mean, that's basically what's happening. Agreed? Yeah. So as a seller, they might feel good, I got an offer, or have an offer that's really high, or way over my ask price, but some of these conditions make those offers really weak. And often it's better to say, look, if it's 5-10 days, let's just tell them to rewrite, because what are we missing in the meantime? Right?
Yes.
Yes, Terry.
Can I throw you a headache a little bit?
Please.
So, the one that I've been discussing with you for the last 2 days.
Which is why we're having this class.
I didn't get to tell you everything about it.
Oh gosh.
And so obviously we're bumpable. I have the listing, the buyer's bumpable, bumpable. And so an offer came over 2 days ago, whatnot, that was $20,000 more than what my seller has accepted. But they sent over the offer with no contingent to purchase, first of all.
But is it contingent right to purchase?
It is, and so I actually had spoke to the buyer, because he's from California, and was calling me questions like when I first put the house on the market. Anyhow.
The second buyer?
Yes. And so the agent sent over the offer, and it's just the earnest money agreement with nothing else. There was nothing in there about their house being contingent, but by texting me, she said, because I said, I'm pretty sure he's contingent, isn't he? And she said, oh yeah, he's gonna put his house on the market in 14 days.
Oh.
So that was one of the headaches. And then the other one was, yes, he's going to, it'll be contingent upon his property, but he's gonna pay cash, but he's now also gonna, so she checked the box cash. He'll pay cash when he sells the close of his home. But then on the bottom part she put, but he is gonna meet with the lender to see if he can actually get a loan. So he doesn't have to be contingent upon selling his home. So how, if
Checked all that beforehand.
So I'm not gonna ask who the agent
And the
is.
agent's never seen the house.
I'm not gonna ask
And
who
his
the
wife
agent
hasn't
is.
seen the house.
But, okay, so, and the wife of the other buyer hasn't even seen the house yet.
Yes.
So what would have happened if she'd never talked to the buyer to begin with and found out that it was contingent and the seller
Yeah.
takes that offer? I mean, like, what happens then?
So, look, so, may come back to that, but what's
Yeah.
your question?
So my question is, first of all, okay, so I had, I knew he was contingent just because I had talked to that buyer weeks ago, right? So I call her and.
agent.
The agent, and she's kind of getting back into real estate. She works in a mobile court. And so I kind of feel sorry for this buyer because I think he has no idea. The earnest money that they put down, being competitive, it was $1,000 on a $575,000. So my point, I guess.
Anyone see any flags?
You
Even
know
all-
what, and my seller's not looking at, I gave him every flag possible, and in him, he's looking at the dollar sign, cause it's a family, you know. It's
Tell you what, I'll write an
retirement.
offer for $1 million.
No.
And I'll close in 2 years.
So,
for that.
I don't waste your time, but so how can they say that they're gonna pay cash, because why would my sellers bump these first ones if they're already alone, and now cash.
And it's actually not a better offer. I don't think it actually bumps it. I don't think it bumps it.
The only thing that they're looking at is the $20,000 difference at this point, but he still has to wait for 2 weeks. My clients, the buyers, number one, it's bumpable.
It's not just 2 weeks.
I know, but the first party, their house goes on the market tomorrow. So if he takes the second one, that's 14 days out, and I'm like, I go, there's just so many red flags on this, and so, anyway, so how can she send an offer over? There were nothing with contingent to purchase. Say they're cash, but they may get a loan. So how?
You can't.
Because-
Comments? Comments on this?
Yeah.
I'll let people, any comments or observations? Raise your hand, one at a time.
Because I think when you say cash, my seller is excited about it, but if it's a loan, there's
It's not,
no difference.
it's not a cash deal.
It's not cash.
It's not a cash.
So that's the whole.
Margie?
Buyer should go get pre-approved for his loan and write it as a loan.
Do you hear this, Tracy?
And if he ends up with cash at closing, you can make an addendum if he has the proof of.
So, yes, that's a good way they should be going about it.
Yeah.
Yes, Scott?
Well, it's already in the contract. If you make a cash offer, you're to provide proof of cash. Somebody can ask for proof of cash in the period. And I
Or-
would go back and do that.
Or you clearly
I
say.
would actually talk to that guy about seeing if he qualifies to be pre-approved, not pre-qualified, but pre-approved for a bridge loan.
That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Last night, so.
And go the mortgage, no cash because it's not cash, and then if he comes in with cash last minute, nobody's gonna care, except the mortgage company.
And so I have a question for the room. On the surface, just what you've heard, is the second offer better than the first one? It's way more than just the dollar figure, because anyone can throw any dollar
Well,
figure.
and and honestly, I mean, I'm not protecting the buyer on this one, but I'm saying that maybe his agent really, she made this more complicated than it maybe really is by the way she wrote it up.
Yep,
And so.
I was gonna go back to that.
She just actually sent me an email, hey, I just sent you an contingent offer over for pots, and I'm like.
But didn't say anything about the contingency.
She didn't see the house, And so, kind of threw me off, but anyways, it's just.
Okay, we'll come back to some of these questions, so, okay,
I
Scott.
was just gonna follow up with that. Well, I think the advantage of asking for verification of cash forces them then to explain all the things that are on the table.
Yeah, if they say cash, where's your proof of funds?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming from a contingent. Okay, so this isn't a cash transaction. They're all cash at closing, you realize that effectively, right? Someone's cash is moving somewhere. It's just a matter of do I need to depend on something else to get the cash?
Yeah.
That's what you have to spell out. Well, I'm depending on the close of a home to get the cash. You can do that. It's a cash offer. If up here you say, cash is coming from the proceeds and sale of my house. You can say that. I'm not gonna get a loan, I'm gonna pay cash in full at closing, but I have to close my house with the market for 14 days. In California and somewhere else, then whatever. Okay, you had your hand up.
Well, I was just gonna say, if she put nothing in that part where it says cash, then it wasn't really a truthful offer at all.
It's not an accurate offer. She needs to step back and rewrite it and make some decisions, is really what's going on here. So what I tell my client and say, look, she's got some double negatives here. She's got some conflicting information. I need to ask her to rewrite this and make a decision, because on one hand she's saying it's cash from the sale of a house. On the other hand, they're going to get a loan. Then you make a decision which one it is and write the offer accordingly, in my opinion, right? And tell your client that, because it's pretty loose right now. I just need to let you know. If we take it, just because of the number they have on the offer part, there's so many other problems here, I don't know if it'll come to pass, so I'm trying to protect you.
There's no proof.
There's no proof of what they're trying to say. And so my take would be is to approach it that way with the client, knowing all this stuff, and just say, look, there's too many holes, too many conflicting information. I've asked her to rewrite this and make the decisions, because they're saying cash or loan, they can't do that. They have to pick one. And like it's been said by a couple, then it's closing. If they can pay cash, fine, whatever, they pay cash. Or it becomes a bridge loan. People do that in California. They own a house free and clear or whatever, they get a loan so they can buy up here, and then when they sell, they just pay off the loan. And they're, you know what I mean?
Well, my sellers were all, about the dollar sign, and so they're like, Trace, we need to get the 72-hour notice to the multiple buyers, number one, because,
Have you given the,
I did today.
you need to explain.
Can you do it non-refundable larger deposit, like they have to
You can
put
counter back on
$10
anything.
or 20 grand down, non-refundable?
I actually sent it to the buyer today,
The problem initially is it's a poorly written offer, and you said she's just getting back in and works in manufactured parks
Yeah,
mainly.
she said some mobile park in Gaston, and so.
I know which one.
She
There's
said,
only
well,
one.
back in the day, $1,000 was etiquette, but then she
Back
called,
in 1980s.
And so she said, I said, well, you rule of thumb is usually 1% of the purchase price, right, or whatever, and so she goes, well, I called Chris Garfield, and he told me I should have done it for more, and so then I'm like,
She
well,
worked for Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
I usually help new agents along, so you can call her and just kind of coach her through.
Oh, yeah.
her.
That's kind of what she's done. You better talk to your
That's what
PB.
I have it done.
Yeah.
I feel-
What you should be telling the agent, say, look, this offer has got some conflicting information. I need you to rewrite it with the proper forms. If we're contingent, present the contingency forms. If you're getting a loan, get your pre-approval and attach it. And then, but that becomes the close date. That means you're getting a loan.
She's not doing any justice for her buyer looking solid.
She's not, and therefore it's not fair to your client, because they're making a decision on one thing, $20,000 more on paper, which is not money you can spend, right? What's that? What if it doesn't appraise? There's too many variables, yeah. So back to your question, Rick, is what happens if you chug down the path and you find out they just haven't disclosed it, but could negate the deal? You didn't disclose it was contingent, transaction terminated. Or you get down the path and the seller somehow negatively impacted because you were negligent or incomplete in information. There's a chance they could have cause against the buyer. So the best thing, Tracy, and I know you're trying to have a small set conversation there, is best to just go back to the agency. You need to rewrite this and make a decision. Is it finance or not? And if it's not, I need all the contingency forms. I need everything done correctly. You better talk to your PB to get it written correctly. And I just tell your clients like this, look, they've written it incorrectly. I've asked them to go rewrite it. And by the way, that $1,000 won't work.
And you don't give the 72-hour notice until after this one, if they want to accept it or you counter offer.
Yeah.
Until this one's
Yeah, we'll get
completed.
that here in just a second. Yeah, that's kind of we're egressing into that next. So questions on, because it's a great scenario to work around, honestly. Because
But aren't you, the other agent, isn't she, I know it's only $1,000, but causing that earnest money to be put
at
in-
risk.
Yeah,
Wait.
yeah, because if
Yeah.
you would buy everything that was on that agreement, they aren't cash.
Trust me, if I was a PB on that, I'd be like, okay, stop. Let's read training, hook up with a mentor, or I'll help you with this, or whatever. Chris doesn't have enough agents, not having time. We got plenty of time to help the agents. Right, so he should engage with that. Speaking of in parks, I guess Martin has a transaction where a listing agent listed a house without the license to do that. And it's very clear, just so you know, it is not a real estate transaction. Real estate agent does not care if you list or don't list. Guess who cares? The motor vehicles and the finance division of the state of Oregon. They care, right? And so they have their rules and their regulations. Does that agent's, and this agent said something like, well, no, they changed the rules. Yeah, they changed the rules to where the agency doesn't care. But someone else does. That's where you gotta go, right? So does that agent's, it's in the MLS, does it negate anything that we're doing for this client?
How big is the
It doesn't. She's an armless agent.
Oh, yeah, but no license.
She's no manufacturer license.
Oh, the minimum. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, no manufacturer in-park license to do it.
She's in the
Is that our
process.
issue? It's not our issue. We just move forward. But she may, I mean, it says right in there, it could be jail time if you do it. It's like, okay, I mean, that's why we said no until we decided to get the license, right? Because it's kind of, agency doesn't care, but other entity does in the state. That's who you have to check with. And you gotta have a bond, you gotta have, and you can't just, it doesn't cover it. No coverage at all. So this agent's kind of misguided. So I'm gonna do a little friendly, hey, you might wanna just follow this link. Or here's a PDF with some highlights on it or something. Because we had to buy a bond, you had to pay, it was like $1,000 just to get the thing going. With a bond and everything. So it's not like you can just, I'll just do it. And sole proprietor, so it's like, who do you go to, right? Yeah,
So there was another one as well yesterday with another agent, and a lot of times these agents that have them listed are not listing their dealer number, and so I have her ask on an addendum for that dealer number just so that we're aware, for our own. I mean, we're not liable. You can still write that offer. What's going to happen is if the state catches on, they're going to go after that.
and it's not even the agency.
It's not the agency.
It's someone
the
else.
state of
Yeah.
Oregon.
Different division. So it doesn't, but it doesn't affect what we're doing. We're covered. So just chug along, right? So just
In the manufactured home contract or offer letter, it does state, it's a little bit different. In the very beginning, it says, marked times of more realty, and then it says the manufactured home license number.
yeah.
So there's an extra added line.
For the license number, which is
Right.
you don't need that. Okay. Real estate's just a funny thing, right? It's too easy to get the license. I'll be honest. You got 3 years of law school to get a law degree, and you get a real estate license for 150 hours that you don't have to watch. You just have to pass a test and pay some money, right? It's not that hard. But you're dealing with contracts. You're dealing with, and so many realtors just kind of wing it, right? But oh my gosh, the risk for just winging it is massive. It's really important. That's why we like having people here. We appreciate you coming here, but we try to protect you, right? Try and teach you the job and all that. So anyway, contingent right to purchase addendum. We're assuming that let's take Tracy's. They should provide a contingent right to purchase addendum. This is the form you should attach with the offer. It should say, see attached contingent right to purchase addendum.
I was about to ask really quick, does it say in the offer form to attach this? It usually says-
I have to go back and look here in a minute, but I can't, it does. Yeah. But here's the
Check
form.
Which form it is.
It's form number, all the form numbers are at form 083. All the form numbers are at the bottom, and then the purchase and sales agreement will say, see attached form or number or whatever, or use attached number, whatever, in the offer. So, and then you acknowledge there's other forms, and they are the notice right to seller and notice to buyer that are part of this transaction, or part of the mechanics of making contingent right to purchase work. Without one of them, the thing doesn't really work correctly. No buyer waiver or contingency except as provided in both notices or otherwise agreed in writing. The contingency may not be waived by a buyer. They can't waive this buyer, they can't override it. Bumpable status, this is important because this is a game I used to play but had to stop because they clarified it. But bumpable status, prior to buyer's delivery of the notice to buyer seller before the contingency deadlines as defined in section 6, blah, blah, blah. Seller's property may remain on the market in a bumpable or active contingent status, or worse that effect on the applicable multiple listing service. So these forms aren't just for the RMLS here. There's other things that goes over. So for our terminology, it must be placed in a bumpable. Now, you could go put it in pending, but no one's gonna see it. Contractually though, this has to be bumpable. Make sense? Yeah.
Just for clarity, as a buyer, if I bring a buyer and there's a bumpable status, we can still place an offer on that house.
Yes. So the word here, the operative word here is may remain on the market in a bumpable status. What's pending? Is that on market or off market? Off market. So you technically could make it pending, it's off market, but you may keep it on the active market, but it has to be in a bumpable status. You can't leave it inactive. Yeah.
So then if it's bumpable on the mark and the offer comes in, that's not a backup offer then, it's gonna be.
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
You're gonna have to note, that's what the notices are, to say, hey, we got a better offer, you got so many hours to change this. So we'll come to that in a second. Eric, were you gonna say something? Okay. Makes sense? So contingent offer, you can make it pending if you want, but it's off market, or you can keep it on market, but it must be in a bumpable status. You can't leave it active. Period. Hi, Peggy. Excuse me. What I used to do was, well, no, I'll come back to that. I was going to talk about the game I played, but I'll come back. Buyer delivered notice to seller of contingency deadline. So what does notice to seller means? A buyer is notifying the seller of something, right? Notice to buyer is the seller notifying the buyer of something. So unless seller has received another offer to purchase property that is acceptable to seller as described in section 7 below, buyer shall deliver a notice to seller on or before 5 p.m. on, that's the contingency deadline. This is an important change why you need to use the forms. This wasn't there maybe last year. I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but it wasn't here that long ago where it was just open-ended. There wasn't a firm deadline on the contingency. So what this basically is saying is, say, look, if you haven't given me notice that you're removing the contingency by October 1, this transaction is terminated. And if you don't have a definition of definite terms, which is an ending, one, it's not a valid contract, but two, this contingency can go on forever. And that could happen. So really you're putting a window on it. So before the forms were updated, I used to do this. This is the game I played. I would say, it's not even a game, it's just kind of this, but just I had to do it myself. I'd say, sure, we'll go bumpable, or matter of fact, we'll make it pending for 10 days. We'll give you 10 days. Because they come back and want 10 weeks, or not 10 weeks, 10 days to even go active on the market. Okay, we're not gonna wait for that. We will accept your contingent offer, but we'll let you go pending for 10 days. Then it's terminated. Or we'll change it bumpable for 5 days, then it's terminated. I used to have to write all this out. I had to used to kind of dilute all this to an addendum or a counteroffer, but now all this stuff's here, right? Make sense? Seller receives another written offer, acceptable offer to seller. So this goes back to the question that we got, was of this direction. About a couple directions about, is it bumpable, is it backup, what is it? If a seller receives another written acceptable offer to seller, so I'm in contingent, right? Michael has written a contingent offer in my home, we're contingent right to purchase, it's bumpable. Along comes Philip to send me an offer, and it's acceptable to the seller, okay? If prior to contingency deadline and buyer is leaving notice to seller, seller receives another written offer to purchase seller's property, acceptable to the seller, seller shall promptly deliver the notice to buyer upon delivery of said notice. Buyer shall have until 5 p.m. 1 calendar day later, if not filled in which to respond. And I'll get back to the responses. So it's not, you don't move it to backup offer. That's not what you're doing. What you're doing is say, hey, Michael, I got a better offer. I'm giving you notice and saying you got 1 day to do A, B, or C. And I'll get back to A, B, or C. If you don't,
is this right of first refusal?
This goes back to the seller's notification. Notice to buyer. I'll come back to that in a second. So effectively though, you have 1 day to respond and basically remove your contingency or our transaction terminated and I'm giving you your money back. It's not moving it a backup. Now, could I accept this offer as a better offer and move you into backup? I can do that. But I have the ability to cancel this transaction because I have a better offer and you couldn't do something within a day. And it says 1 day if not filled in. So if you want to give them 72 hours, you have to put in 3 days, right? No, that's not right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, thank you. Now, it used to say at the top, 72-hour right of notice. Remember that? It doesn't do that anymore. You have to make sure identify it down here. How much time? If you don't put anything there, it's only one. You give the buyer 1 day to respond, and maybe that's okay. But here's what's going to happen on an offer. Now, this usually will come over with an offer written by Michael, for example, and he's going to put 10 days. It's going to be to his advantage, right? Everything in there will be checked and marked, and numbers will be added to his advantage. But I have the right to counter on that before I accept it and say, well, no, this is our contingent right to purchase addendum. We're not going to give you 10 days here. We're going to give you 2, right? So just be aware of that. Just because a buyer submits that with an offer doesn't mean you can't counter on it. So you look at the terms and conditions. So that's page 1 of that. What time is it? Okay, I'm going quicker here. Contingencies and other time frames. So this is one where I get in a lot of conversation. I'm trying to remember who was I talking to. Who was it? Someone, it was over the weekend or something. I talked to somebody, and maybe they're here. Maybe, you don't need to bring it up. Contingency and other timelines. So this addresses when do the contingency timeframes begin. Okay, the timeline set forth in the financing section of the sales agreement shall continue unchanged. So then, if you go back to financing, that means you've got to apply for your loan. You've got to move forward with all the financing contingencies. That remains unchanged. Okay. Now, it's not written well, but continuing, except as otherwise provided herein, the agreed upon timelines for contingencies, review of documents of record, professional inspection, lead-based paint, and other non-contingent timelines, except closing. Okay, ignore this for right now. Can I I want to ignore that for a moment. Okay? So as you read this, except as otherwise provided herein, timelines for contingencies, set like professional inspection, lead-based paint, disclosures, all those things, and other non-contingent timelines, in the sales agreement shall, and you have to pick one, continue unchanged. And if you pick that, all the contingency timeframes begin upon mutual acceptance. Inspection, property disclosures, lead-based paint, everything commences immediately. That's what that means. Understand? There's some double, you have kind of to look at it a little bit to make sure, but that's what that says. Or if you check box 2, all these things shall commence on the next business day following the date buyer delivers seller notice to seller. And it's accepted. This section 8 shall not apply if seller has received into their offer and is completed. Okay, ignore that for right now. But so you have your choice. Contingency is going to begin immediately or upon when the contingency is removed, is basically what that says. Make sense? Is it confusing to anyone? Please raise your hand. It's confusing to me, so I'm not shy. But when you read it out loud and understand it, that's what it's saying. The contingencies for inspection and set everything so all, like that will begin as decided here. So what's a stronger offer? For the seller is continue unchanged. I'm really serious. I'm gonna have my inspections, I'm gonna have everything moving forward as if I have an offer. I'm serious as a buyer, right? Or I can say commence on the business day after the contingency removed, which means once I get an offer in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, then the inspection contingency begins. That's what that says. There is an exception right here. Except all those begin upon, as noted below, except closing. For example, earnest money deposit or transfer of funds. That has to continue unchanged. They've exempted it from the selection of choices. That continues. So if I have a contingent right to purchase, and I write an offer, and Michael writes an offer, and he checks commence, which is probably more typical. You check that one. You still got to make your deposit. Earnest money deposit must keep going unchanged. Make sense? Just like financing contingencies. So I can't remember who it was this weekend. I was talking to someone a couple times back and forth. It'll come to me later, but I know who it was now. I'm not here. But they had misunderstood that verbiage, because when you read it in its full, not hiding this and trying to reanalyze it and dissect it, it can get a little confusing. But that's what it makes sense? Anyone, I'm always happy to say, Paul, doesn't make sense, you're wrong. It's okay. No one's in trouble. So, we're all good? We're all on the same page? Okay. Timing for closing. Closing this transaction shall be, select one, as provided in sales agreement, which is really hard to predict, right? You can't really check that one. Or X number of calendar days the buyer delivers notice to seller. And you typically, what people are going to want to do is, check that one and say, 35 days after, that means closing time frame, that window of closing time frame begins upon removing the contingencies. Make sense? Okay. Good faith cooperation with escrow, delivery notices. Time is of the essence, need to be respective of the agents, exercise the best efforts to use prompt and reliable means of timely delivery, such notices. Okay? So back to the notices. I'm gonna change that, go to notice to buyer. I'm a seller. Michael's on contingent with me. Phil writes an offer, cash, close in 2 weeks. Is that a better offer? Yes. I have to give him a notice. This is the form I use to give him a notice. I, meaning me, listing agent, will put this together and send it to Michael. And it basically says, hey, we got an offer. You need to pick A, 1, 2, or terminate. 1 basically says, we have accepted an offer, I just haven't let you know yet. And we can move forward. So that contingency is removed. 2, we've listed it for sale, but no offer on it. But we're still gonna remove the contingencies. That means you gotta prove you can close on the thing without closing the house. Or you're just gonna terminate and get out of the way. Those are the choices. And how many days based upon this do I have to respond? 1 day. So I got a day to figure out if I can remove the contingency or I've just got to get out of the way. And the reason they've done this is because people were dragging their feet literally and holding people hostage, waiting and whatever, because it wasn't very clear.
They were literally dragging their feet.
Yeah, literally. I'm trying to find it so I can see it really quick. You can't stack, I can't find it quick. If I put my glasses on, maybe I could. But you can't stack bumpables on top of each other, meaning you're contingent. You can't go contingent or bumpable without my permission. And we literally had one last fall where there were 5 lined up. And number 4 away fell. And I checked with the agency, what does that mean? Can we terminate the way everything is written? You couldn't. I couldn't terminate. I had to wait. But now this means you cannot stack them. That's new. And it's in here. But you can't, whoever's contingent can also go contingent without my permission as a seller. And it's just an addendum. Hey, we want to accept a contingent offer. No, yes. But they can't stack them. Okay? So that's what that means, notice to buyer. You're basically putting the buyer on notice. You've got 1 day to either just basically remove your contingencies or terminate. Yeah.
Can you bump a bumpable for another bumpable?
So what it says in here, that's what Tracy's scenario is she's got a bumpable, but she's got a bumpable that's got a higher. So in the contingency, it says a seller, right here, it says a heading of it says, seller receives another written offer acceptable to seller. It doesn't define what acceptable means. Because again, remember, is price the only factor in an offer? It's one of hundreds of twists and turns. So it doesn't say if you receive an offer higher price, it just says more acceptable to the seller. So your seller could in fact do that if they feel like it's more acceptable to them. I just don't think it is, as it's written, right?
So before you notice or give the 72, well, since we're doing 72 hours for 3 days.
Notice to buyer.
Yeah, does the seller have to sign that other offer, or do they wait to see? Because we may counter back.
What you would do is counter and say, hey, I've actually, here's what I've done. When I helped, is Sandra up here? Yeah, I was helping Sandra in something when she was out of town. This scenario happened, and I wrote an addendum that said, hey, look, we're countering back to you, saying I could go find the exact verbiage, and I said, look, subject, I've delivered notice to the buyer, this transaction is not truly effective, or mutual acceptance is not effective for 1 more day until that time passes.
Or 3 days, or whatever.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the language I had in there. So we weren't under contract, nothing began until that had expired and now we're under contract.
Right, cause in case my buyer number one decides to increase their purchase price, or, you know, if the seller counters back to them and says, we really wanna keep you, but are you willing to come up in your price?
Yeah, so you can do that, you counter, but what I would do first, I'd say, look, you rewrite the offer, make a decision. And then counter based upon what you get, because you don't even have a real offer right now, Tracy. All you have is a piece of paper with a purchase price on it. Isn't that appealing?
She already gave them something to the first buyer.
Not yet, we're waiting.
She already did though.
You haven't given it to her.
We're giving it to them today.
Don't do it.
I wouldn't do it. I would call your client and say,
That's
look.
my seller, I know, they really wanna go with this other offer just because of the dollar signs.
But you don't really have
come
an
to
offer.
Jesus
Well, I mean,
Yeah, they don't have either. They don't have cash or.
I think you need to revisit with your client and say, look, I just attended a 2-hour training or hour training, and, you know, we need to have them clean this offer up before we do respond, because it's not really a valid offer right now. And I hate to see you cut this one loose for something that's not real yet.
I said that like 3 times to both brothers yesterday.
You could lose both.
So then their point to me was, well, do you think buyer number one, do you think that they would come up, because we really like buyer number one, do you think they would come up to make it closer to making stuff?
You can still counter. You can counter, say, hey, we received another offer. We're willing to stick in this one for a purchase price of this. You can do that. If not, we're gonna give you the notice.
That's kinda what I heard.
In the end, your clients are, you have to do what the client says, and you advise them. You might make a note in the file, hey, I advise them 6 ways to Sunday, just so you know, but in the end, you can't not do what they say. You can't say, oh, I'm not gonna do that. You go, okay, I'm giving it, I've advised you, you have to make your decision and stand by it. Notice to seller, this is basically just a buyer saying, I've accepted an offer on my property and agreed to keep you informed, but we're moving forward to remove that contingency. Or we've listed the house and not accepted an offer, but I still remove the contingencies. That's what the notice of seller says. So it's not common that will occur unless you get an offer on the property. Make sense? I see Tracy going, what am I gonna do?
I'm wondering why I got into real estate
Because it was easy. Questions? I mean, we're against the clock here. Any questions? Yeah, Gloria.
This is great, thanks for everything, I'm trying to follow it. I just have one point that I'm fuzzy on. If their house is on the market, it sounds like the seller has no choice, as long as the house is on the market. It hasn't even passed inspection yet, they still have to go pending. Don't they have the choice to say, then you'll be bumpable?
Yeah, that's what it says,
I think that.
Yeah, up here, you may stay active in the market you may continue to market the property in a bumpable status. Right here. Is that it? Right here. Seller's property may remain on the market in bumpable or contingent status, but it doesn't. You can make it pending if you want. Why would you? At least this is off the market. Yeah.
So also, if a buyer was in this situation, they also couldn't say like, well, I'm just gonna list my, the property I need to sell by myself. I'm not gonna use an agent.
No, it says right here that you need to list.
Yeah.
Listed for sale with a licensed real estate agent. Yeah, they can't go for sale by owner. You need all kinds of requests, and really, the reason they do this is, hey, I don't want to miss out on the property. I kind of make it convenient. I don't want to have to stress about my house. Will you take my offer? And these things actually put a little more pressure on the buyer, which is where you want it. Put the pressure on the buyer to get it active and sold. Because otherwise the seller's waiting.
I do want to say when you have a second buyer like that, and they do essentially have, their house, whether they have it listed or they're going to list it, it'd be nice to find out what they're going to list it for. If it's a realistic, see if it's a realistic.
Well,
price,
okay, yeah. So here, let's talk about that. If you receive one of these and you counter back and forth and you come up to terms that are acceptable, you still should ask for, okay, when you get it active, I need the active printout. Send it to me. What are you going to list it for? What's the comp show? Do your own due diligence. You can check. We're going to list it at $900,000. You comp it out, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Cornelius. Seriously. And you can sometimes weed that out. And that's the challenge in these contingents. Sometimes is you're waiting for a buyer to go maximize your dollars. Well, I'm not going to wait for you to do that. That's not my concern, right? You're maximizing your dollars by overpricing your home. I don't make that my problem or concern. right? Yeah.
I just got one other thing, the way I look at contingencies, when I'm the listing agent, is the reason to take a contingency is that the feeling is the house that is making the offer that has the contingency, the bet is that it's going to sell before your listing's going to sell. That's a good reason to look at it.
That's one of the bets, yeah. You see a lot more bumpables in a buyer's market. This is a seller's market, and I'm just disinclined to leap on a bumpable in a seller's market. Well, I'm not gonna wait 10 days, I'll just wait and see if someone else come along. It's still a seller's market. Anything else, Denise?
Wouldn't you advise Tracy to get it in writing that you're sending it to them so that you can put it in the file and have proof that you've done that? And
It's
send
not-
it to SkySlope.
And sometimes just a simple summary email, hey, just per our conversation, here's what we talked about, but I'll get you the addendum. Not make it freak them out, but it's just, in the end, these clients have to make their decisions. We cannot make it for them. Or it's not our job or our right, honestly. Yeah.
One question,
Oh.
when the buyer, do the second, bumpable offer, the second one, and not the first one, I mean the second one, I want to buy this house, and then, the listing agent say she give 5 days to respond from the first bumpable buyer. So during that 5 days, still continue showing for houses for the second buyer, because the market moves so fast within the 5 days, what's going on?
So a seller can show their home to anyone they want, anytime they want.
I understand, I'm talking about the buyer who offer on this house, but haven't get accept because the.
No response yet.
Yes.
Can they
because
keep
5
looking at
days.
other houses?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you're under contract, you can keep looking at other houses.
Oh.
But you can't have two offers, and, I mean, you gotta be very careful, you can't have just two offers chugging along to see which one
Yeah.
closes.
Right.
That's not, you can't do that. So in that situation, hey, I wrote an offer on Michael's property and we went and looked at, oh, this one's way better, this was our dream home. I could write an offer, but the minute it's accepted, I should terminate.
Yeah.
And there's a risk that you lose your deposit, because you don't know, it depends what stage you're in, and so you gotta bear that in mind. But now I have my dream home. Yeah,
Did you detach your computer?
I did.
Okay, so I was picturing, when I said yes, it's mentioned that contingency is noted in the contract, I was picturing a tiny little box to check, but there isn't one. But there is section 4, line 58, that states where your,
Which form do you use?
liquidity, the sale agreement. It states where your liquidity is coming from, and one of them is sale, so you need to note it there. I see most people just write it in as additional provisions.
It should, hey, these forms are written by lawyers over many years. Why do you think you have to dissect that one thing for 10 minutes we did to see what it's really saying? How easy would it be to say, look, all contingencies commence unchanged except make your deposit on time. Is that more clear? Wait, I mean, I don't understand, it's what you pay, you overpay lawyers, right? You get paid by the hour, right? And so anyway, so it's not always clear, but in the ORF form, I wish they would say, hey, if subject to the sale of a home, or it's not listed, be sure and use attached form ORF 38.
Yeah, so when I yelled yes or no there, I was picturing a.
Yeah, but they don't have all that clear in there.
Contract, but.
And that's why they change the forms change every year too. When I started, it was 4 pages. It jumped to 11, now it's back down to 10, so go figure. Questions before we go? Yeah.
I have it's simple, but I give an offer on a property, and expiration is to the reviewing at 9. What should I do? Send over an addendum?
To extend it?
Yeah, or
you don't have to. If they want your offer, all parties can extend. Just say, hey, all parties agreed to extend the expiration of this offer through mutual acceptance.
okay.
And you can, there's ways to work around that.
If they counter or something, they just put okay.
Yep, you can do that. But you need to put something in place that says, this was resolved after expiration, but we still agree to move forward. You have something like that.
Okay.
Anything else? Just a reminder, you got a CE class here, cross country at 11:30.
Yep.
And then there's other meetings that I have, Eric and I and Patrick and Ryan have set up. We'll start probably about 20 after, for those that are aware of that meeting. So, okay? Thank you.